Well, I think real-world data is a concept, basically, by our definition of our firm, we call real-world data anything that's not part of a randomized clinical trial. So this can be marketing data, hospital data. We like to use EHR data. And what we've been doing is extracting pathways for about 3 years, looking at the patient history and comparing it to the current treatment pathway, which is bone marrow transplant. So we've been able to construct a fairly robust pathway with statistical significance that shows the comparator between CAR T and bone marrow transplants. Obviously, there are only a few CAR T products on the market for acute lymphoblastic leukemia as well as DLBCL leukemia. The work we've focused on has been primarily in the adolescent ALL. And what we've found is that there's a difference in prescription practice that I think a lot of people were unanticipating. It's an unanticipated result that a lot of people didn't expect. Essentially what we're seeing is that the CAR T is only being used in the most disease burden population now, which was not necessarily what I think a lot of the clinical trials were expecting. So the results are not what are necessarily considered in the clinical studies that have been reported now. We're actually seeing a shorter term response on average just because it's only the highest disease burden population that is currently not able to have a bone marrow transplant that's receiving CAR T. We're not saying it's always the refractory population, but they're certainly less responsive. From what we've seen over the conference, it looks like, and again, there's increasing amounts of data that show the amount of CAR T cell load that you give to the patient has a direct and germane impact on the possibility of a CRS. The idea is to avoid it altogether. I mean, obviously tocilizumab is one of the key drivers to make sure that we don't have a CRS and was one of the key parts to make and facilitate CRS. I mean, our point is to monitor it and make sure that it's under control. I think from the standpoint of cost, minimizing CRS from an economic perspective is key because that's one of the key cost drivers. And unfortunately for a lot of hospitals, given their insurance regime, it's currently uncompensated as an adverse event, which does throw the health economics a bit off kilter. Frankly, right now, the key challenge in CAR T therapy is the cost. Right now, the price appears to be prohibitive of substitution. So what we see as more competition comes in the market, according to our analysis, we need to see a price. We're looking for a price of between $200 and $277. Let me rephrase that. We're looking for a price between $200,000 and $277,000. And at that point, we should start seeing substitution with bone marrow transplants. And then we would ideally begin to see CAR T therapies drift into the less disease burden population because at that point it makes economic sense and you'll have more experimentation.